Welcome. And this edition of Nation Building, I'm Winston Pinnock. I have with me today one of the founders of the Free National Movement, one who was first elected to serve from the current opposition party in our country. And of course, we have two major political parties, the Free National Movement and the Progressive Liberal Party. And it's a great pleasure for me to present to the country Mr. Maurice Moore, referred to by many in Parliament as Firstborn. Mr. Moore, welcome to our program, to Nation Building.
Thank you very much, Pinnock, and I'm pleased to be here, and I hope I'm able to give you some information so that your mission would become easier.
Yes, sir. And when we come back from this break, we'll talk more with former Member of Parliament, Minister of Government, under the first Free National Movement. If I can refer to it in that way, he was the first elected member of the Free National Movement. And we're talking history today. And so we'll take this break and come right back.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama coconut milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau. I don't wanna win.
You're thinking about starting a business or looking to expand and grow an existing business, the Invest Grand Bahama Small Business Bureau can help. We are your complete business resource center, offering a one-stop shop service to aspiring entrepreneurs and existing business owners. Did you know that most startup businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years as a result of poor planning, insufficient funding, and lack of basic business management skills and training? The Invest Grand Bahama Small Business Bureau offers a wealth of resources, information, and support to help entrepreneurs avoid costly mistakes, make wise choices, and plan effectively for a successful business venture. Why risk becoming a statistic? Helping entrepreneurs realize their goals of successful business ownership while working with existing businesses to remain competitive and profitable is what we do. Visit or call us today for more information on how the Invest Grand Bahama Small Business Bureau can help you. Invest Grand Bahama Small Business Bureau, empowering licensees.
At Henry F. Store Electric Company, we supply all your electric needs for any size project, from residential housing to luxury hotels. We can help you achieve just the right look, from doorbells to chandeliers, table lamps to ceiling fans, wire, conduit, panels, dimmers, switches, plugs, and even tools. And don't forget light bulbs. We have those hard-to-find energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and more. Henry F. Store Electric, number 135 Mackley Street. Over 50 years of reliability, service, and low prices. We also ship to the Family Islands.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm Winston Pinnock, your host, and again today we have with us Mr. Maurice Moore, former Member of Parliament, first elected member of the Free National Movement. Mr. Moore, you were first elected in 1972, was it?
No,
when
in
was
1967.
it? 67. And you were elected. You were first elected under the FNM in 1972, was it?
In 76.
76, okay.
Yes.
So I will let you talk to us about the events and times. From what did you do prior to entering politics?
Well, let me see if I can approach this. In the early 1900s here on the island of Grand Bahama, lifestyle was very quiet. Bottling development in West End, Grand Bahama, were one of the activities, and Pine Ridge development in central Grand Bahama was the other. Bottling was a tourist hotel, sport fishing, rum running, crawfish processing complex in Grand Bahama. Some of the remains are still there today.
And where is this located again?
In West End,
West End.
Grand Bahama, yes.
Where specifically in West End?
The factory was just behind where Austin Grant's old hotel is now. When you pass there again, if you look in the back, you will see the remainder of the concrete walls and so on and so on. And of course, you know where the Jackdaw Hotel was. Pine Ridge was in the center of Grand Bahama, and Pine Ridge really was run by an Abaco lumber company. And that company was owned at that time by Mr. Wallace Groves. The island was then administered by an appointed Out Island commissioner. A board of works assisted by leaders of the settlements of Grand Bahama. They're from each of the settlements, they had one or two leaders. Both development were beginning to experience difficulties in the late 40s and early 50s. So Wallace Groves, the then owner and developer of the Abaco Lumber Company, and the Bahamas government entered into an agreement known now as the Hawksbill Creek Agreement, and that created the city of Freeport. Those who were fortunate to get a common laborer job had to work in Freeport during the day, and they had to go outside. They couldn't live in Freeport, they had to live outside. They had to find some place outside to live. And this really is where the problems began.
Right.
We had professional people. We had professional people who were in the hotel industry. You had fellows like Cochise and Jim White and Baby King and Bain and those guys who were good hoteliers. You had people in
And these are Bahamians.
Bahamians,
to be
yeah.
sure.
All
Bahamians.
black Grand Bahamians. Then you had people in the transportation business. You had people like Onward Jones, I'm sure you know Onward, and George Curtis and Lofton Cooper, deceased. They were persons who were experienced, and they were running that type of business, albeit it was meager, but they were running it. And then you had persons in the construction industry on the island who built beautiful homes and so on. You had persons like Elcott Bartlett and Maurice Mallory, who's now deceased, and many other very able construction individuals, craftsmen. And then, of course, you had persons like myself who had just come back in the technical area, and Henry Bowen, you know Mr. Bowen as well. And so what we decided then, you know what? This ain't gonna work. What we have to do is we have to get all these various craftsmen, we have to get them together in their organized unions.
And unions didn't exist.
Unions did
prior
not
to
exist then, no. Didn't exist then. Nobody knew very much about it. And because of the pressure on our craftsmen here on the island, it was easy to organize. And after I had several meetings with Mr. Martin Ponder, who was then the labor officer for the Bahamas, he was an English fellow, but he was a fair fellow.
Okay.
And so we used to talk. We had some rough days here in Freeport. I ran the construction and civil engineering, and I ran. All the other people came to the union I was in who was not in the hotel industry or in the transportation industry. Bowen and I ran the union, and I was the president. Bowen was the secretary. And we had 3 massive unions. And because of the difficulty the workers were experiencing, they cling to the union for protection. And I was lucky to have fellas in my union who didn't fear anything or anybody. So we were able to, we made a lot of progress in Grand Bahama. It was 1971. Bahama Cement. I was president of the union, so I called all the workers out. I had that kind of influence at that time. I don't believe I have it now. But I called all the workers out. We had about
You still believe you have that influence, don't you?
We had about 300 workers there. 150 or thereabout were Jamaicans. Another 70 or 80 were Canadians. And then the rest of them were Bahamians. We only had about 50 Bahamians. So I called everybody out, and they came out.
Just for the record, but by this, the Progressive Liberal Party had been already formed, obviously.
Oh, yes.
And had no seats in Grand Bahama?
No seats in Grand Bahama.
So
Grand Bahama at that time
was
represented by one of the Bay Street boys, Charlie Bettle, one of the Bettle brothers.
Okay. And how many representatives at Grand Bahama?
Just one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Population was what? Roughly?
Population was about 4,000.
Okay.
And so we got all that going. We had several strikes. We had a strike at Bahama Cement when they opened it. At that time, we had already come to the conclusion that, you know what, we got to have a man in Parliament for Grand Bahama as well. And so they decided that, well, you're the fellow. Sir Stafford came in that morning when everybody was out in the yard.
Sir Stafford Sands.
Sir Stafford Sands.
Who was then the Minister of...
He was Minister of Finance. We acted as the main man, even though Sir Roland carried the name as Premier, but what Sir Stafford said, that was it, you know.
Okay.
He came on the scene, and the president and the other guy came outside with him, and said, where is, he didn't know me. He asked, where is Mr. Moore? This man, I understand, is creating all these problems down here. So I was sitting right up, I was standing up, not too far from him, so I waited till he was finished talking, you know. So I said, Sir Stafford, I'm Maurice Moore. What can I do for you? He says, I understand you called. I say, yes. Martin Pounder should have told you that is legal under the law, you know. They're my members. I didn't tell the others to come out, but I guess they just did what they feel was the right thing to do. I said, well, what about you? What do you feel about it? How do you feel about all these Bahamians? There must have been about 60 or 70 of the fellows, Bahamian fellows sitting over there. I said, how do you feel about all those fellows over there out of job in their country, and that crew you have over there, every one of them are working. They can go back in and go to work now. I said, how do you feel about it? So I didn't kind of give him any time to answer. So I said, that's the problem. I understand that you are the attorney for this company, but you have another obligation. Your obligation is to your people. You better fix it, otherwise we can have a problem here in this place.
To which he said?
He says, let you and I talk.
Oh, okay. So he's ready to negotiate.
So we walked over, we talked. He says, why didn't you call me? I said, Sir Stafford, come on, man. I says, don't let's go that road. I said, it's the first time you met me. I said, you didn't even know who I was. I said, so don't go that road. I says, our people is entitled to work in any job on this island, and particularly in Freeport. He said, well, I heard that you've went on many the construction job and physically attacked the foreign workers. I said, well, that's propaganda. I said, don't let's go down that road. I said, if you were at home, how would you feel somebody coming in your house and taking over? I see. But in those days, I was a little bit more flamboyant than I am now. I'm a gentleman now. So the staff had said, look, he said, we can fix this. I said, I know you could fix it. I said, I'm glad you're here, but I wanted to be able to tell my workers, I told you what the problem is, and you tell me you can fix it. I said, fix it, and they'll all go back to work. So it took a day or so, and we got that matter settled. But you don't know what he said to me. He said, oh, look, he said, the elections is next year. He says, and I would rather you run than Mr. Bell. I said, don't get me in that now. I deal with my workers.
So he was immediately looking for a candidate.
I said, yeah, I said, I have a job.
He saw a leader.
I saw a job. I said, I have a job. And so after that evening, he had somebody drove him out to my house. He came and he tried his best to
Persuade you.
To persuade me to run. I said, no, I won't. I tell myself, now I won't beat that damn conky show myself. I said, I don't want nobody. I don't want him to get away that easy. He treated people on Grand Bahama too badly, man. And I know that the workers of Grand Bahama was ready.
Right.
And so the election came. Party nominated me. I won, hands down.
Was there a contest for that nomination?
Yeah, I mean, CA.
C.A. Smith.
CA wanted to run as well. But it worked out where the fellas really wanted me because they believed I would do what they want done. And CA was good. He says, all right, you won. I'll be a manager.
On that note, we're going to go to a break. And this is Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. When we come back from the break and go into the other section of our program, we're going to move forward
to the first elections.
The first, so Mr. Moore can explain what took them so long in opposition and to win the government, to convince the Bahamian people that they deserve to be the government, and talk about the future, which is very important as well. So we'll take this break and come right back on Nation Building.
Are you a business person staying for a night, a week, or a month? Holding a meeting for your company or organization? A couple starting your married life with your wedding? Looking for vacation happiness on Grand Bahama Island? We know our happiness will make you happy. You'll see it in the smiles on the faces of our people. Our common goal at Pelican Bay Hotel is to anticipate what you need to be happy and to see that you get it. Visit our website to find everything you need to find happiness at Pelican Bay at Lucaya.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from GEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. And today we are dealing with a very, very important subject. We're talking history, we're talking from whence we came as a people, and we have Mr. Maurice Moore, former Member of Parliament from both political parties, first as a PLP, then as a Free National Movement member, and he is taking us down history and sharing a historical perspective on our country. Mr. Moore, in the 1970s, well, first of all, let me give you an opportunity to say, we've been jumping hoops here.
Yeah.
Historical lesson has been so exciting, but let's talk about, after overcoming that, well, you didn't actually talk about your election, so let's do that first.
Okay.
In the 1960s, your first election, after getting the nomination.
Well, after getting the nomination, the election part was fairly easy because I was leading one of the largest unions, and all the other unions were fully supporting us as we were supporting them. So during the elections, while the powers that be thought that they had everything sewed up, you know, I knew days before the election where we would.
Were they buying votes back
yeah,
then?
they're buying votes. They're buying votes, and I told my people, take the money. You need it. But don't let anybody take your mind and take your common sense and your judgment and take your future. You know where it is. Put your vote there, but take their money. You need it to buy groceries next day. So take it. And so we did. We won.
How wide was the margin of victory?
I was I could have been as many as 200 ahead of Charlie, and then but there were 5 persons who ran.
Wow.
Yeah, you had somebody run for Labor, you had somebody run independent, and you had the UBP principal.
So just to be clear, most of the votes went to black Bahamian candidates, so to speak.
Well, two of them, myself, British Gray, Audrey Russell, three black and 2 white.
Right. So I just wanted to be clear. Did the majority of votes back then go to the black Bahamian candidates, or was the white Bahamians at the time,
well,
or the Bay Street Boys, did they get the majority?
Bell came second.
Okay.
So he got
a significant.
Yes.
So the reason for asking that question, obviously, is you still had a significant portion, significant enough of our people still supporting the Bay Street Boys.
In fact, you had most of the leading fellas in these various communities who formed the Citizens Committee and the Board of Works. They supported the government.
And they are black Bahamians.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Proceed.
And so anyway, we were elected. I was elected, and we became. Everybody were happy and pleased about it. Went on to Nassau. Penland wrote in his book that I got mad with him because he didn't put me in his cabinet.
What year was that when you first got elected? 67, you said?
Yeah, 67. No, I got elected, in 67, 10th of January.
First election.
1967, yeah.
Right.
He said, there's something else. I asked him about that too, you know. He put in his book that he believed, because he and I were very good friends, and when I supported the vote of no confidence in him, he hadn't written his book yet. So when he wrote his book after that, he says he tried to describe why the 8 of us did not support him. Mm-hmm. He says I didn't support him. He said because he didn't put me in his cabinet.
And to be sure, the 67 election was when we had majority rule.
Yes.
And that was when you needed Brennan and
yes,
folks
we had 17. There was 17 plus my one. We had. I was elected here in Grand Bahama, and along with 17 others of the PLP.
Okay.
the two independent, A.R. Brennan and Sir Randolph Fox.
Right.
They supported the PLP and was able to
Form the government.
to form the first black majority government of the Bahamas.
So what role did you play in that government? You weren't a minister.
I was more or less their gopher fella, the fellow who ran all over the place, because we had a very slim majority, and so you couldn't have more than one fella out of the city, out of the country at any one time. So they ran me all over the place. But I didn't mind, because we were serving a purpose, you know, and so everybody had to carry the role that was assigned them. We had difficulty, and we met very often, and one of our first difficulties was to deal with a civil service that was managed by a cadre of British permanent secretaries. That was one of our greatest difficulty. And the other difficulty we had was that none of us, except for Carlton Francis and to some degree Coakley, none of us had any experience in cabinet government. So it took us a while to get a hold of that, and then we had to consult. We had to try and find a group of the permanent secretaries who had some level of confidence in our success. So that became a problem. And what complicated it more was that you know, we began to have problems. You know what I mean? Where Penman started a form of administration which carried a character of everything that has happened. It happened because of him. And where
and by that you mean every positive development.
Not only that, he made it clear, you know, that he was in charge, and that began to create problems. In fact, that began to create dissension, and we had a problem. It first started by trying to decide what would be the priority in this new Bahamian black government, whether we're going to put education and infrastructure in an attempt to raise the quality of life and to begin as quickly as we can to prepare the people. That was that crew, and Cecil and his crew felt that's the way it should have gone. There were others who felt that, well, we shouldn't move so quickly. And that created a rift, along with things like when Mr. Penman came down and spoke at the groundbreaking of our Borco, and when he also...
That's the bend or break speech?
Yes. And when he delivered in our first convention at the British Colonial Hotel, he talked about the groups that were doing what he didn't want them to do, or doing what he didn't tell them to do.
So all of this happened in 1 year?
No, that's
okay. Right, because you had another election in 68 where the margin grew. And just to be clear, in that next election, you still did not enjoy the favor of the Prime Minister.
Well, look, those things started, and I don't know who was guiding him, but I certainly wasn't, and all the fellows around the table weren't, but they started before the 1968 election.
Right.
And after he came back with that overwhelming majority, oh God, he thought he was king. And he acted that way sometimes. And we had probably, the problems just multiplied.
And so, before we go to the break, what year did things really break away?
Things started really to fall apart in 70.
Okay.
Beginning
And
of
was that
69 and
really
70.
was the breaking point the issue of independence? Is that what?
Independence was a part of it because some of us were saying yes, but is independence priority right now? What we ought to be directing is.
But a lot of people said that the group that you were a part of and yourself had only opposed the move for independence because Sir Lyndon Pinlin had brought it up, and it wasn't in a sincere, disagreement about. Is that true?
No, that is not true. And and when I see what goes on the radio wave about it, it really bothers me greatly. Every member of of my group then was in full agreement with independence. Where problems began is when we try to publicly explain to the public of the country why what Pinlin was doing was not right. And when he initiated a goon squad to attack us physically, and when they tried to assassinate Cecil coming out of Parliament that night, that is when it was after then that we made the decision, you know what? We ought not, if we give the Bahamas independence with Pinlin acting this way and he doesn't yet have it, you know what will happen to us. And that, I've never said that to any people because only Arthur and I left now, Arthur and Donaldson. But we had to meet in incognito. We had to meet in places where, this is how bad it was. We were physically attacked in my community. The PLP goon squad came in directed by Kendall Nottage. And then they had a crew infiltrated the police guard when we were coming out of Parliament. And so what we said after we met, gentlemen, this matter is serious. This man will do anything to maintain power.
And for the record, there have been many reports that I've heard that the FNM in later years were guilty of doing some of what you referred to as this goon squad, doing some of the same things as well.
See, I don't put it, not to my knowledge.
For example, the issue in Abaco when Sir Lyndon was attacked. So for the record, I just want to say that the accusation
they were trying
gone both ways.
To pin that to the FNM, but that was not the FNM, and they know better. They know better. I mean, I don't want to call the people's name who it was, but they know it wasn't the FNM. But that was that is something, and I said to Arthur once while he was Governor General, I say, they keep asking you that, you got to tell them that,
Tell them what?
Tell them, look, after he decided, in order to have his way, he will physically attack us, even kill you.
Those are serious charges.
Well, I'm telling you, they tried to assassinate Cecil that night coming out of the place. Do you know who saved him?
Who?
The knife must have been about that long. Fields, the police officer, because his hand caught some of it.
So he was actually cut?
Yeah, he was cut. And out here at Lewis Yard, I protected a chair that was going to knock Garnet Lavarity.
Well, how certain were you that these weren't just operatives, people who were zealous for the cause of the then PLP and Sir Lyndon, as opposed to laying it at the feet. And I understand that is your view, but
no. These were leaders of the PLP party. Kendall Norris was Penman's right-hand man.
And you don't take it that they were acting out of being zealous?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. And so we've stayed away from it. But since you asked me, I will tell you, because you see, we were prepared to go along, even though there were many areas which he expressed the kind of leadership that can only take you into total dictatorship. But we were prepared to work with him and work with it, trying to get it straightened out. But when the men who were in the trenches with you, and you're going to have your own squads attack them physically. No, man.
So moving along, for time's sake,
yeah.
After all these challenges and what you described, these vicious attacks,
yeah.
And so there was a parting, a complete severing.
Yeah, we decided that we will go start our own party.
You went into the 72 election.
Yes, we lost.
You lost that election.
Yeah.
You were accused of basically joining with the same oppressors who, the ones that you fought against in 67.
Yes,
Which
yes.
to some, for the record, to some was seen as a betrayal of what you stood for only a few years ago.
Well, you see, you will have persons who will, and they're entitled to their opinion. But those of us who were on the forefront, we realized that there are varying degrees that persons have in devotion to their country and the principles of their countries. And you have to, see, once you are sincere in your purpose, you can withstand, you can even work with varying degrees. It's just that if you are varying yourself, then that's a different story. But when you know where you are going, and when you know what your purpose of your mission is, you do not vary. You can take help from any side because you know what your goal is.
And so you moving on, just before we go to another break,
yeah.
You moved from, the question I'd like to ask and get a quick response to before we go to the break is, you lost consecutive elections, 77, 82, 87.
No,
Quickly.
the party lost.
Right.
I lost one. One was stolen. That was stolen.
Which one
me,
was the one that you personally lost?
I lost 77.
So you were elected in 72, lost 77. You ran in the same constituency.
And won back in 77.
In 82.
I'm sorry, I lost 72.
Oh, you lost in 72.
Yes.
And you won again in 77.
That's right.
And then in 82.
All
and you won all the way back. So when we come back from the break, we're going to get a little more excited here on the program, because we're going to talk about Mr. Moore's and the FNM's crowning moment, and also move ahead to, did they get too big-headed, as the Bahamian people said? They got glory, and then maybe they became the folks who they were criticizing. Let's see. We'll talk to them when we come back from this break. This is Nation Building. I'm Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back.
Time is money, and when you need more of both, fly Western Air. 12 flights daily between Nassau and Freeport. At Western Air, your 11th round trip is always free. Flights to Marsh Harbor coming soon.
At Henry F. Store Electric Company, we supply all your electric needs for any size project, from residential housing to luxury hotels. We can help you achieve just the right look, from doorbells to chandeliers, table lamps to ceiling fans, wire, conduit, panels, dimmers, switches, plugs, and even tools. And don't forget light bulbs. We have those hard-to-find energy-saving fluorescent bulbs and more. Henry F. Store Electric, number 135 Macklin Street. Over 50 years of reliability, service, and low prices. We also ship to the Family Islands.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm Winston Pinnock, your host, and I have the good pleasure of speaking with one of the founders of the Free National Movement, indeed the first elected member of the from that group. Mr. Moore, what happened in '92, and explain the whole what led to that, what caused you to be in the wilderness so long, and then what was really the turning point in you. Some believe it was the fact that the Honorable Hubert Ingram took over the party. Others disagree. Some feel like it was just a matter of time. So you tell us what was really the key.
My interpretation of it, yes, he played a major role in focusing the party on in 1992. But if you would recall, in 1978,
or 87,
1987, we only lost by a very few votes. You know, we came back with 17 seats, even though they had increased the number of seats.
It was then 40 seats? Or 30,
yeah,
42
seats
in 87.
Yeah, 42 seats. So we did, in my judgment, we did well.
But not well enough.
No, we didn't do well enough. And what contributed a lot to the victory was the victory, firstly, of the by-election in Marco City. That
and you're referring to David Thompson's election in 1990.
Yes.
The by-election.
By-election.
And that was the FNM's first successful
yes.
attempt at beating the PLP at any election.
Yes, and particularly nobody had beaten the PLP in no by-election since then, you know.
Or elections,
or before
period.
then, right. Yeah. So that was important for the morale, and it gave a greater and a deeper sense of strength and rightness in what we're doing. And Mr. Ingram came in, and he did some revamping in the organization, and he was open to areas of discussion, and he fought in a unified way, and he fought day and night to so much so that when the victory came, we all basked in the
glory.
Yes, because you would have seen what working together with a common purpose, with a singular direction, and there were no distractions.
And some say that it took a PLP to join the ranks of the Free National Movement.
To beat him.
In order to beat the
Some
PLP.
people say that. I don't pay much attention to it.
So you disagree, obviously.
Yeah, I don't pay much attention to it. The country was ready for a change, and the people were ready. The organizations putting forth the candidates, they need to be ready. And Ingram came in and got the FNM.
How did it feel personally, though, for you, being elected first in 1967, re-elected over the years, losing in 77, all the struggles, all the failing to beat Sir Lyndon at his game. Yeah. How did it feel in 1992 when you woke up and found out that not only Maurice Moore was elected, because you were used to getting elected, but to realize that you have become the government?
Most of my colleagues have been elected. Now, I was very, very, very pleased. And what it did for me, it told me in a most emphatic way that for which you were standing so long, not wavering, you now have it.
It was redemption.
Yes. So I enjoyed it. I believe I enjoyed it more so than most of the fellows because they a lot of them fell by the way as we went along.
Couldn't appreciate the journey?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened? You served as what minister in the first England?
First as minister for labor training, and some other stuff.
Okay. And you were re-elected in '97?
Yes.
Right.
And so, I went, remember now, I went to, I left and went to, just before the elections, all right? I went to the United Nations.
Which election that was?
Just before the 97 election.
So you actually only served from 92 to 97. You only served one term.
Right.
And you went to the UN as ambassador to the United Nations. How did you enjoy that?
Very much, because I was able to build up a very close friendship with the Secretary General, and he made a lot of use of me while I was there.
So after all this fight and all these years, over 2 decades, why only one term? Were you tired? Did you feel like
you mean after the election?
Right. I mean, after being elected in 92.
What I wanted to do, and I still feel like doing that, I would like to see young professional Bahamians, men and women, take their rightful place in our society.
And you felt accomplished after 1992 and serving as a minister of government for that one term.
Yeah.
Maurice Moore felt that, look, I have brought my party to victory. I've played a major role in bringing that. The mission is accomplished, and you wanted to pass on.
I served as their in command straight through all the storms, with all the change of leaders and this one leaving and the other one
Why
coming.
don't we see more of that in our leaders? Why don't we see more people, and I'm speaking specifically to what you did, not the fact that you were, I'm speaking to the fact that why don't more of our leaders move off the scene and make way for younger generations?
It would be a breath of fresh air for our country. Our country is doing extremely well in world affairs. Our leaders, and many of our leaders, need to get off the back of the country. Because they are steeped in their ways, and some of their ways are not good for the country.
So would you say that the current breed of leaders on both sides, at least in some cases, are stifling the growth of the development of our country?
Absolutely.
So in 2002, when the party lost, you were not a part of the elected body of the party then.
No.
How was that for you? How did you take that?
Well, I felt bad about it, but I saw it coming a couple of months before the general election. Mr. Ingram, in my opinion, lost direction this last year or so.
Strong words, Mr. Moore.
Well, I mean, if he was headed in the right direction, we'd come back as the government, wouldn't we? You don't put your people out in the field 60 days before a general election and expect them to win.
Would you say the party as a whole became arrogant?
Well, I could say that, but I must put the blame on him. He was the leader, and nothing much happened.
But did you give him full credit when he won? Because you said you put the
Yes.
blame on him when he
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
Did you credit him fully?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that if the interaction was correct, say beginning a year to 6 months before the election, to put the House in order, put the right candidates out rather than picking them 2 months before the election, we would have won.
Do you think that the party at that time, the leader of the party, was too strong-handed in terms of his approach to managing the organization?
I feel so. I
Okay.
feel so. In fact, there are some expressions which he made, which it resonated among the public, and the public was not very pleased with it.
With that, I want to, because we have limited time left in our program, and we certainly don't have enough time to go into all of the history that we'd like to, we'd like to do two things. One, quickly, look at the fact that just before that election, there was a referendum, and the referendum was brought to the people of the Bahamas, and it was resoundingly rejected.
Yeah,
And pretty
it's
much
rejected.
the substance of that has been brought back now.
Yep.
Some people say it's basically the same thing. I mean, there's some things that's not in there now, but pretty much the main issue had to do with gender equality. Now back as a referendum. Did you support the referendum then?
I supported it then.
Do you support it now?
And I support it now.
Are you prepared to vote for all four bills?
I'm prepared to vote for all four bills. You see, what we have as one of the persons who have a fairly good understanding of what it's all about. The principle this referendum seeks to correct in our Constitution is to give equality to both a Bahamian man and a Bahamian woman equally. That is the principle behind this referendum. All the other stuff, while some of it has importance.
And you're not concerned about Bill 4, that the church, many church leaders and many in the society is concerned will open the door to gay marriage?
I am not concerned about it to the extent that I would vote against it. I wouldn't do that because there is a greater principle in this whole matter. And that principle is that we are seeking to give full equality to all our citizens. If you trust the men, you got to trust the women too. You can't say, well, I can trust the men because they're going to do it a certain way, and I can't trust the women because the women may run out on it. No, you cannot apply that kind of thinking when you're dealing with the fundamental things of your country: citizenship, equality. Now, there are some thoughts that perhaps the legal minds may be able to interpret into Section 4, the possibility of when they refer to male, it does not mean that a young man who is born a male or a young woman who is born a female may change their
Gender.
Now, what they're saying is that you could say that, and the lawyers in their legal gymnastics could find points that will perhaps give
Make
them
a case.
Yeah, they perhaps will make a case. All right, put it that way. I won't go that far, but yeah, let's say they could make a case. When your Constitution tells you, and your marriage, under the Act, your Marriage Act, it tells you here in the Bahamas Marriage is between a man and a woman. Now, they're saying that that
But
could
the
be
Marriage
varied.
Act, people would say, don't trump the Constitution. And so to the extent that you are imposing a change on the Constitution, the Marriage Act is null and void in terms of its power to override the Constitution.
That's all you have in the absence of anything else beyond saying that male or female, sex is either male or female.
Well taken.
That part is there in the Constitution.
Your parting words, Mr. Maurice Moore, to the young generation of Bahamian that is preparing themselves when the opportunity is given, hopefully soon, to take our country to the next 40 years. What is that?
My advice to our young nation that the country at the moment is at a crossroad. And I'm going to use an old saying. And that old saying is that you will reap what you sow. We are fortunate to have some of the most brilliant young men and women anywhere else in the world. I believe that those of you who have the sincerity of purpose to come into political life, to direct the leadership of our country, I ask you only to put your purpose first and not your self-interest.
And your view of what role God plays in the development or religion or spirituality in the development of our country?
It's very important. You cannot go without God's blessings or his guidance. I have been in some problem spots over the world, sent out by the UN, and sometimes I took my wife with me. Other times I couldn't for security reasons. And it's only God alone who brought me home safely. My trust is in him, yesterday, today, and forever. I ask the young people who are aspiring to leadership, let God guide you. God give you wisdom, knowledge, and understanding far greater than many of us. Use it. Use it for the furtherance of his works here on earth. Look after the poor and the needy. Deal with what is needed for the development of our country. Not persons, for the country, all persons.
Mr. Moore, you have been a most excellent guest. I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with our viewing audience. This is Nation Building. Thanks for watching us, and we look forward to presenting another very exciting and informative episode on our next program. Thanks.